Welcome to the SWAAC October webinar. We've got a real treat for you today. Claire Simpson, our resident occupational therapist, has meticulously gone through the SWAAC Loan Library to bring to you what we have available, what the features are on our switches, so that you can take that information back home with you and, maybe look at what you're doing with your current students using switches, and maybe there's a little something that we bring to you today that will be helpful. So I'll go ahead and let Claire get started.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here to learn about switches in the SWAAC Assistive Technology Loan Library. My name is Claire Simpson, and I'm an occupational therapist and a research instructor at the Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering. And as part of my role, I help to coordinate the SWAAC program. SWAAC stands for Statewide Assistive Technology Augmentative and Alternative Communication Program. I know many of you are already very familiar with SWAAC, but if you're not, this is a program that we coordinate in partnership with the Colorado Department of Education in order to support assistive technology providers in Colorado schools. And I'll be telling you a little bit more about SWAAC as we go throughout this presentation. I want to quickly tell you a little bit more about the Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering, where I work, so that you can kind of understand who we are and why we do this work. The Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering, or CIDE for short, is in the Department of Bioengineering at CU Denver. And much of the work that some of our colleagues do is academic and research focused within the university, but much of our work is also very community focused. So we have several different community programs supporting individuals across the lifespan. These include, like, if you've heard of the Colorado State Tech Act program, SWAAC, of course, like I just mentioned. We have an assistive technology outpatient specialty clinic, and probably 6 or 7 other community-facing programs targeted at people of all ages. All of our projects have the same overarching goal of improving the quality of life for people with disabilities through the use of technology. And this is our team here on the screen. And I just included this photo to give you a sense of how many people from multiple disciplines are available to support you with your assistive technology needs and questions. We have physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists. We have engineers on our team. We have former teachers and special education teachers and researchers on our team. So if at any time you contact any of us with a question and we are not the best person to help you with that question, we will pull in the person on our team who is best equipped to help with that question among our large team of experts. I'll tell you just a little bit about myself. So like I said, I'm an occupational therapist. I've been with the Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering for just over a year and a half now. And in my role, I spend most of my time supporting SWAAC and then Project Include, which is one of our other community-facing projects. It's an initiative to support licensed childcare providers in Colorado to feel more comfortable and confident supporting children with disabilities and delays through training in principles of universal design and adaptive technology. And then I also spend about 1 day per week in our assistive technology outpatient clinic. I work mostly with clients who need alternative computer access solutions to meet their work or school goals. So that's me. More importantly, I'm sick of my professional headshot, so here's my dog. She's not very good at photos. Here's a link to the slides. I also threw it in the chat, but if one of my colleagues could repost that in the chat, just in case anybody has joined since then. The link will just take you to a Google folder, and then inside that Google folder, there's the slides in both PowerPoint and PDF format, so whichever you prefer. And then I would also suggest you might just keep that Google folder open because there's also a Jamboard in there, which we'll use in just a few minutes. So in this presentation, I'll be telling you about the SWAAAC AT Loan Library. I'll talk about it pretty briefly because I know many of you are already familiar. We'll discuss the feature matching process and then look at some features of some of the switches and switch interfaces in the SWAAC Loan Library. The learning objectives for this presentation are to be able to describe the benefits of using the SETT's feature matching framework when assessing assistive technology needs, identify some features of some switches in the SWAAC Loan Library, as well as some switch interfaces, and then identify just some additional resources for further learning, especially if there's kind of another switch related topic you're really looking to learn about, like switch assessment, switch training, positioning. So I want to share a bunch of resources that are either freely available through SWAAC or freely available to anyone. So as I mentioned, this webinar is focused on items in the SWAAC Loan Library. And so if you're not already familiar, the SWAAC Loan Library is an assistive technology loan bank with I think we're at over 2,400 items that are available for loan by Colorado public school assistive technology teams, as well as early intervention assistive technology consultants. And the primary goal of the loan library is to make device trials available to Colorado students and children with Part B or Part C services who might benefit from trying assistive technology. So this presentation is going to highlight only switches that are available through the SWAAC Loan Library at this time. So this is a very SWAAC-centric presentation. However, if you're not part of SWAAC or if you're not an AT consultant with EI, you still have access to view our loan library catalog, even if you can't check things out. And this is a really good resource for anyone, even if you can't check out, because we typically will include, the names of items obviously will typically include a description, a picture of the item, and any links to like videos, any resources that we can find to go along with that item. That loan library catalog is linked here on the screen. So that's swac.goalexandria.com. SWAAC has 3 A's. If you're new to SWAAC, or if you have any questions about how the loan library works, highly recommend our Getting to Know the Loan Library webinar. Our loan library administrators, Brenda and Ashley, put this on each year. So that's a great way to learn more about the loan library. And then additionally, in the past few years, we've had a few really great webinars focused on specific types of items available through the loan library. So sort of like how this presentation is going to focus on switches available through the loan library. We've had other webinars focused on loan library topics in the past. So just mentioned those last spring. Robin Kellogg and Michelle Thomas, 2 of our amazing SWAAC team coordinators, presented Accessing the Fun Stuff, fun and meaningful participation for all students. And that was all about loan library equipment that we have to support those special activities, like gym, sports, art, and music. And then a few years ago, Chris Perkins and Maureen Castillo presented Unpacking the SWAAC Literacy Kits. So check that one out if you're interested in learning more about the awesome resource that is our literacy kits. Here's just a sneak peek into the loan library. Again, we have over 2,400 items encompassing all domains of assistive technology for education and early intervention. In the photo on the left, Paige and Allison are pulling some AAC devices from our entire row of AAC shelves. And then on the right, this is just a couple of our shelves that store some of our switch adapted toys and games. So let's say you wanted to look for a particular switch in Alexandria, or maybe you just wanted to explore switches in Alexandria more generally. So there are a couple of ways you could do this in that online loan library catalog. So again, you'd go to SWAAC.goalexandria.com, and from there you could select search, and then you can either type in like if you're looking for something very specific, you can type in a specific name of a switch into the search bar, or if you more generally just wanted to explore switches, you could just type in switch. And if you type in switch, you get over 100 results. You can click on the title, or you can click on this little arrow on the right hand side, and it'll drop down and you'll be able to see like a little bit more of a description of the item, as well as any links associated with the item. Or another way to do this is you could use the explore function. So when you come into Alexandria, instead of choosing search, you'd choose explore, and it would pop up this page, and you can explore any of these different categories of assistive technology. If you wanted to explore switches, you would press switches, and then you can explore within different categories of different types of switches. One thing that I will note about Alexandria, we try to give this caveat often, is that it's a piece of software that was designed for school libraries, like book libraries. And so occasionally it doesn't quite tag things correctly. You might find a few things that don't seem to be in the right category, or something missing from a particular category. So just keep that in mind if you use the explore function. It might not find every single thing that we have. And so if you're looking for something and you're not finding it, please reach out to us. If we have it and it's just a matter of Alexandria not finding it, then we can help you find it really quickly. And if we don't have it, then we might be able to consider adding it. So it never hurts to ask if you're having trouble finding something. I wanted to give the disclaimer that this presentation will not be an exhaustive list of all switches and interfaces that are available on the market. I can't even cover all of the switches and interfaces that we have in the loan library. If I did that, if I sat here and listed out features of 100 different switches, you would probably be bored to tears, and that would take forever. So what I did was I pulled a report from Alexandria on circulation of all of our switches, and then I chose a few of the most popular switches and interfaces, the items that circulate the most, and then I chose several switches that circulate the least, just in case the reason that they don't circulate is just that maybe people aren't aware of them. And then I chose a few additional ones that just represent some more unique features. The other disclaimer is that by reporting out features of various switches, I am not endorsing anything. All students have different needs, and any given feature that might work really well for one student might not serve another. And so just because I say that something is durable does not mean, it's just an example, but if I say something is durable, that doesn't mean that it is overall, better than one that might be less durable. In fact, that's kind of why we use that feature matching process, because different students need different features. So let's get right into it then. So the Student Environment Task Tool Framework, or the SETT Framework, and again, I'll go through this fairly quickly because I think a lot of people are familiar, but this framework was developed by Dr. Joy Zabala as a way to guide assistive technology assessment and service provision kind of through all of its stages. It gives us a really nice process for really thinking through all of the aspects of and kind of the interactions between the student, the environment, and the task, and then being able to figure out which tools will be a really good fit, the best fit to help that student meet their goal of performing said task in said environment. So in the next few slides, let's assume you've already determined that a switch is going to be the best access method for the task. So as it relates to switch assessment, what kinds of things do we consider about the student? So we need to know their strengths and we need to know what motivates them. We also need to know about skills and abilities, like their sensory abilities. What is their vision like? What is their hearing like? Do they have sensory preferences or aversions? Motor skills and abilities that we're going to look at will include things like what is their available range of motion? What is their strength like? How controlled are their movements? Is it coordinated? Can they inhibit movement, or are they having uncontrolled movements in certain body parts? What is their tone like? Do they have spasticity or rigidity or low tone? Do they become fatigued really quickly with certain movements? And then we need to consider their cognitive skills and abilities. If, for example, we're considering 1 or 2 switch scanning, then that's a task that requires, a certain level of attention and memory and sequencing and motivation to complete the task. And so you can kind of start to think about then the features that might match the student's skills and abilities. So for example, if strength is limited, they might need something that requires very little or maybe no force to activate. If they're hard of hearing, maybe they need a different kind of sensory feedback to tell them that they have activated the switch. If you know their strengths, if you know what motivates them, maybe they see the color red really well, or they really, really love the color yellow, then you might know that you need a red or a yellow switch. And so you can start to think about features based on the student. And then when you start to think about the environment for switch use, we'll need to consider where is the switch going to be located. Will it be mounted? Does it need to be kept in a very specific position, or will it move around? The photo on this slide is a kiddo in a wheelchair, and if you look closely, you'll notice there's already several other things mounted to the wheelchair. So in this case, we'd be thinking about where are we going to place that switch without interfering with the other devices they already have, without interfering with driving, with transfers, with other functional activities, because thinking about that might affect features of the switch that we end up choosing. So like it might need to be a really small switch that doesn't take up a lot of space if there's just not a lot of space for it to live. In what environments is the switch going to be used? If the student, for example, wants to explore switch accessible digital books in the library, well, the library is generally a very quiet, kind of distraction-free environment, and so it might not be a switch that vibrates and sings a song every time it's activated. So thinking about where it will be used and how that might affect what features you need. Who will support the student to use the switch, and then what is their familiarity with switches, with certain features, and or what is their ability to learn new features, like if there is any programming or mode switching involved, is there support for that if there needs to be? Thinking about the task, what are we using the switch or the switches to do or to access? Is it intended for communication, for play, for computer, tablet, or phone access? Is it going to be used to drive a wheelchair, for environmental control? Will they be needing to switch and use one switch for multiple purposes? What is the interface that the switch will plug into? So is it just plugging into a 3.5 millimeter port on a switch adapted toy, or does there need to be some kind of adapter or interface in use? And then kind of once you know the task, kind of just do a mini task analysis. So consider how long or how they will go about accomplishing the task with the switch or switches. If you're familiar, if you've ever heard of the Stepping Stones to Switch Access by Linda Burkhart, this is a really nice way to kind of judge where a student is in with their switch skills. And that can help you think about how that might affect how they perform the task. And then how many switches are they able to use? If scanning is involved, what type of scanning is it? And does the switch need to be latched or does it need to be timed in order to complete the task? Okay, so now we can really get into thinking about features of the switch since we've thought about the student, the environment, and the task. So here are some things you might consider related to the switch itself, or in the SETT framework, the switch is the tool. Kelly Fauner did a really nice webinar for Pennsylvania AT program, which is called Patent, on feature matching based on the SETT process. And she categorized features based on whether they are input features, output features, processing features, or other features. And I just thought this was kind of a really nice way to be systematic about making sure that you are thinking of all the features, thinking about all the features that you might want to consider. So tying this back to switches, and the link on this slide, you can explore how she categorizes these different types of features for all different kinds of assistive technology. It's really interesting and helpful. But if we're just thinking about switches, input features might include things like how is it activated? What is the input? So is it pressure? Is it activated by proximity of movement, by motion, by sound? How is the switch activated? For output features, you're thinking about feedback. So what kind of indicator do you have that the switch activation was successful? Do you have that indicator coming from the switch itself, or is it just from the device activating? What is the activity output? So what happens when you successfully activate the switch? And then what type of connection is needed? So yeah, and then also thinking about like how long does a switch activate a device? Is the device only activated while the switch is being pressed, or does it continue to stay activated after releasing the switch? Processing features will include things like how many switches are in use, if there's scanning going on, what type of scanning, what type of selection. Other features that might be really important might include things like size, weight, portability, color. Can you label the switch? Can you decorate the switch? That might be an important thing to think about. You might have a student that's just absolutely not gonna interact with a switch unless it's bedazzled. And there are a lot of switches that won't work if you bedazzle them. So believe it or not, that could actually be a feature that you would consider. And then kind of along those lines, does it have sensory qualities that might motivate engagement with the switch or help the user interact with the switch? So once you've gathered this information, your next step is to record the features needed based on the student and the environment and the task. And the SETT process has this SETT scaffold for tool selection handout. It's available on the SETT Tools website, which is found at joyzabala.com. And it's just a really helpful way to record all of this and make sure you're capturing all the information that you're gathering. So you record the features that you have decided that you need across the top. So those are the descriptors. So maybe you know it needs to provide auditory and tactile feedback. It needs to have a large activation surface. Maybe it needs to have very small activation force. It needs to be durable. Maybe it needs to fit on a mount, things like that. And then you can start to think about available options. So, and then you'll record available tool options in the column, the vertical column on the side. So you might think, you know, I have a jelly bean in the cabinet, so you might write jelly bean under available tools, and then you'll check, well, yes, it's durable, yes, it can be mounted, but no, it doesn't have a very large activation surface, and so on through the features that you've listed across the top. Going through this process not only helps you find the available tool with the most feature matches, but it just really helps you kind of be able to look beyond your immediate toolbox of those switches that you kind of just always go to, and be able to maybe start to look to other sources like the SWAAAC Loan Library or other places where you might be able to get or try different types of tools and switches, so that you can offer just more options to your students or clients and just really make sure you're finding something that's a really good fit with the most must-have feature matches. All right, so the next thing I want to do before we dive into the Loan Library switches themselves is a quick Jamboard break. So I'll have everybody go open this Jamboard. It is in the Google folder that I shared at the beginning. So the QR code and the link on this slide are to that same Google folder if you already have it open. So go in and open up that Jamboard. Think about a student or a client that you have worked with who used or needed a switch, and then list 2 to 3 features that were really important for that student in that environment for the task they were trying to complete. 2 to 3 kind of must-have features that they needed. So I'll pop out there, give everybody a chance to do that. And the purpose of this activity really is kind of twofold and a little bit selfish. I want to make sure that I'm covering all the features that you all kind of think about on a regular basis for your students and the things that you look for. But also, if I don't cover all of them, or if we don't have any options in the loan library that might match those features that you need, then I want to have that recorded and be able to do some research and see what else we can find on the market that might match some of the features you're looking for, and make sure we can get those added to the loan library. So, response to light touch. Yeah, so that'll be a feature we'll talk about a lot. Small in size, lights up, vibration. Let's see. Bluetooth connection to iPad, two-step switch scanning, being able to spread apart to have better access, size of the target, vibration or auditory feedback, needs to be small to fit on a wheelchair tray, the lack of real estate, yep, and then within the available range of motion. Consistent and reliable when the switch is accessed. Responds to minimal movement, textured. Can attach to multiple surfaces. That's a really good one. Yeah. Not easily breakable. Great. Okay. I will share my PowerPoint again. Mounted safely near their head. Yes. All right. Are we seeing the slides again? I think so. Okay. So let's look at some of the switches in the loan library and their features. I do worry a little bit that this part of the presentation might start to feel a little bit repetitive, because I'm kind of just going to be listing out features of a lot of our different items. So just remember, the goal is just to take away a few new switches and maybe a few interfaces that you might consider trying. Or if you're already familiar with everything that I have in here, if you've used many of these, then the goal might be to think of a few new features that maybe you hadn't considered in your switch assessment process in the past. So not remembering every single feature of every single switch, but just getting a general sense. The first several switches are wired mechanical switches. So all of these switches have a few features in common. So I'm just going to list them out here so that I don't have to say them on every single slide. They are all pressure activated. They're all wired, usually with a 3.5 millimeter jack. They all they'd be great on their own for like a switch adapted toy or a battery operated toy with a battery interrupter, but they will all likely require an interface for any type of more high-tech access, unless it's built into the device, like it is on some of our AAC. But generally for just using like an iPad or a phone or a computer, they're going to require some type of interface. And then they would require a modifier for any type of latch or timer. And then these also all happen to provide auditory and tactile feedback when they're activated in the form of like a click that you can hear and sort of feel. So the SPECS switch requires 100 grams of force to activate, which is sort of right in the middle of the road compared to the next several switches that I'll show in terms of its activation pressure. Relatively small activation plate. We have a couple of versions of the SPECS switch in the loan library. So we have the regular SPECS switch that's just on a plate, which can be attached to a mount with Velcro or with screws. But we also have the one that's pictured here, which attaches via Velcro to this hand strap that wraps around the palm and the wrist. And I just wanted to show this one because it's just a little bit unique. If the palm and then finger flexion is a good switch site, then this might be a good option to try. But again, we do have the regular spec switch that can sort of be mounted in more ways. The one with the hand strap that we have in the loan library is yellow, but AbleNet sells the spec switch in blue, yellow, black, green, or red. So you have options if there is a color preference. The Jelly Bean switch requires slightly more force to activate, and it has a slightly larger activation plate. When you purchase the Jelly Bean, it comes with different caps that you can screw on to make the switch different colors. And then it also comes with a clear cap, and you can place a label, like a label or word or symbol on the switch if you need to. That will stay there underneath that cap. And then AbleNet also has a nice app that helps you kind of make those labels in the correct size and shape for their different switches. So that could be useful. We also have a Jelly Bean switch that has been modified to be normally closed, meaning when you attach a switch adapted device, the device will activate until you press the switch. And then when you press the switch, the device will turn off. And when you release the switch, it will turn on again. So sort of the opposite activation pattern. That's just the normally closed Jelly Bean, but I just wanted to mention it. But the rest of our Jelly Beans function as you would expect. The banana pie switch is made by Max Mods, and it requires 70 grams of force to activate. It has a 7-centimeter diameter activation surface. It's durable and it's yellow. This one is very new to the Loan Library, so if you haven't tried it yet, you might consider that. One cool thing, at least I think, is that, so this was designed by MaxMods, which is comprised of a group of therapists and parents. And so you can kind of expect some features that are just some of those design features that are inherent to kind of the real life needs of users with disabilities to kind of sneak in there, like the durability piece. The big red switch is intended for someone who needs a larger activation surface. So it's 13 centimeters across. So this one's about double the others that we've looked at so far in terms of that activation surface. Comes with green, yellow, red, and blue caps. And then also, again, the ability to add labels under an additional clear cap. The microlight switch is intended for someone who needs very little activation force. For a button type switch, this is the smallest amount of activation force that I've seen in a switch, at 11 grams. So, but the surface area is pretty small. So it's about the size of an adult finger. Actually, that's my finger, and I have kind of small adult fingers. But anyways, it's about the size of a small finger, and it's black and silver, but they come with like colored stickers that can cover the silver part to kind of brighten it up a little bit. The adjustable angle switch is a little bit unique in that you can adjust the angle without any additional mounting or positioning equipment. And the angle can be adjusted between about 30 and 90 degrees. This one requires 30 grams of force to activate, and it has a 12 centimeter diameter activation surface. So this is a larger plate for that force required compared to some of the other ones. It's yellow, and enabling devices also has a very similar sequencing communication button on that same adjustable angle platform. The possum chin switch is meant to be worn under the chin without any additional mounting or positioning equipment. It's worn kind of like a necklace. So you separate the tubing at the end here, and then you put it around the user's neck, and then you're supposed to cut it to the desired length so that the black part sits right under their chin, and then they can use head and chin movement to reach and activate that switch. It requires 2 grams of force, and the actual, like the activation surface is about 2 centimeters by 5 centimeters. And then there's a photo. I feel like it's kind of hard to picture what this looks like without seeing it on someone. So I linked a photo on the bottom there if you want to see what this one looks like kind of in action. The Glass House G-Switch series foot switch is intended to be used with the foot. Requires a bit more force than the others, so it requires 2,500 grams of force, but I do think that makes it a little bit more durable, which can be really important for a foot switch sometimes. And it's kind of unique in that it can be used to emulate right or left click, depending on how much force is applied. So I think it's like if you press it halfway down, it can make a right click, and if you press it all the way down, it makes a left click. And then it has a non-skid bottom, and it can be placed on a stable flat surface, and then it only comes in black. The wobble switch is a mechanical switch still, but since it's kind of a nice long lever instead of a button, it requires very little force to activate. So it's about the same activation force as the microlight, but a little bit more surface area there to find. You can buy it from enabling devices either on this blue stand with the suction cups on the bottom, or you can buy it attached to a gooseneck mount, which is really nice way to get it. And I'll just show a picture of that quick. It's the one linked on the slide here, but this is the same switch, just you can purchase it attached to a gooseneck mount, which can make it really a nice way to position for someone using head or chin movement. And we have both of these versions available in the SWAAAC Loan Library. All right, so here's just a list of some other wired mechanical switches in the loan library that I won't cover in depth, but that you might look into further if you're interested or if any kind of catch your eye. The animal switches can be really fun. And then the thumb switch does kind of represent a switch site that we haven't really covered in this presentation. So yeah. The next several switches are multi-sensory switches. So they are still pressure activated mechanical switches, but they all have other sensory elements that might enable the user to either locate the switch or motivate them to interact with the switch, or just provide some additional sensory feedback when the switch is activated. They're all, actually, with the exception of the first one that I'm going to show, these are all wired, and again, all would still require an interface for most high-tech access. And most of them require batteries or charging for some of the sensory elements like lighting up or vibrating or singing a song to work. So the Cosmo switch bundle comes with 6 switches. Of course, you can choose how many you want to use, but they do provide some interesting group switch training activities that utilize like each person has up to 6 people each having one switch. So that's kind of neat. And then you can adjust how much pressure is required to activate the switch. So you can adjust between 50 and 500 grams of force needed. The diameter is about 10 centimeters, so kind of a mid-size activation surface. They provide visual feedback, so they light up to draw attention at various different times, and then they can also light up like brighter or in different colors when they're activated. They're compatible with Bluetooth or via Bluetooth with most operating systems. So they are compatible with iOS, Chromebooks, Windows, Android, etc. And then if you want to see these in action, either like the switches being used or the switches being used with the app that has all the switch training activities that go with them. Their website has a lot of videos of that. And so I believe that's a link to their website and some of those videos at the bottom there if you're interested in exploring those more. The bright switch for the visually impaired is, as the name suggests, it was designed for users who have a visual impairment and may be attracted to like a bright yellow light. When activated, it illuminates even brighter yellow light, and then it plays music and it vibrates. It requires 50 grams of force to activate, and this one's a bit larger. It's 17 centimeters across. The textured orbit ball switch offers a little bit different of a motor pattern of interaction. So it's not just push up, down, you can, but you can push it like forward, you can pull it toward yourself side to side, press up, down, requires about 90 grams of force to activate. And that spherical activation surface is 9 centimeters across. And then when it activated, it lights up and it makes a click noise. The Koosh switch has a Koosh ball over the activation surface. You can apply 30 grams of force right over that ball and it will activate. And then again, when activated, it lights up, it plays music, it vibrates, and it makes a click. And it also has suction cups on the bottom that can help hold it in place. The Gushy switch is a gel-filled pouch If you apply 90 grams of force over that pouch, which is about 25 centimeters across the long part, so this one's pretty large, but it when activated, it vibrates, lights up, makes a click sound, and it's available in multiple colors as well. The SensoDot vibration switch is a large round kind of half sphere with a bumpy texture. It requires 40 grams of force to activate, and it's 15 centimeters across. So again, this one's a little larger, and it makes a click sound and also vibrates just a little bit when you activate it. And it comes in green, blue, red, or yellow. Here are a few, again, just a few other multisensory switches that we won't do as a deep dive into, but you could look into if any catch your eye. And I'm not sure if I mentioned, but the links, all of the like product links in here will take you to the item in our loan library. So you can kind of explore it there if you're interested. So proximity switches don't require any actual force applied to the surface, just that a body part gets close to the surface of the switch. So these are often used by individuals who can't generate enough force to activate a mechanical switch. And the ones that I'll share here, I'm just going to share two of them. They're both wired. They both provide auditory feedback in the form of a beep when they're activated. So the little candy corn proximity switch requires that the user get within 1 centimeter of the activation surface, and the activation surface is about 5 centimeters large. But there is also a big candy corn, which is pretty much the same thing, but with a larger activation surface if that's needed. It makes an auditory beep and it lights up when it's activated. It does not require calibration, and it's compatible with the AbleNet mounting plate. A lot of times, a proximity switch it's going to need to be mounted, so that's kind of an important feature to look for. The Honeybee proximity switch allows you to adjust the proximity required, so you can choose between 1, 3, or 6 inches. So you can activate this one from a little bit further away than the other one. The activation surface is just that little window right at the top below the word Honeybee. So it's pretty small. It's only 1 centimeter. And this one does require calibration, I think, especially to switch between those different modes. And it makes a beep when it's activated. And then it has that removable yellow cover. Here are a few switch modifiers. So the switch switcher allows you to access 2 devices with a single switch. So to switch between which of the 2 connected devices you are controlling, you hold the switch down for a specific number of seconds, and you can customize how long that is in the programming, but you hold it down for the specified number of seconds and control will switch between the 2 devices. And then if you want to go back, hold the switch down again and it'll switch back. It takes 1 switch and has 2 outputs with 3.5 millimeter jacks. A lot of people are familiar with the single or the dual switch latch and timer that AbleNet used to make. Unfortunately, for some reason, they stopped making that within the past year. And so we've been looking for alternatives wherever we can find them. So this is one alternative that we found. The Tiny Switchy is a switch latch timer. However, they call the latch feature, they call it toggle. So that's just something to be aware of when you're looking at the device itself. If you're like, what's toggle? Because I don't know, to me it's latch. But so they call it toggle. And if you plug in a switch and you plug in a switch adapted toy or device, you can modify how the switch controls the device. So in toggle mode, you can make it so that one hit of the switch turns the device on, and then it stays on until you hit the switch again to turn the device off. Versus in timed mode, you can set a timer on the tiny switchy, and that will determine how long the device stays activated after the switch has been hit. And you can set a timer from anytime between 1 second up to over an hour. The PowerLink 4 is a way to switch control appliances that have an AC power plug. So with this one, think about things like kitchen appliances, a lamp, a fan. We have some really fun giant inflatables that can be switch controlled by we just threw a power link in there with them and a switch, and you can blow them up with a switch. So I think we have like available right now, we have that 6 foot tall, like the wavy man that stands, that's on the corner outside of stores. It's giant. And then we also have like a 4 foot tall birthday cake that's inflatable. So those are really fun options, a little bit different. So again, if you're using a switch adapted toy, or if you're using a battery powered toy with a battery interrupter, you can typically just plug any wired switch right into the device and start playing. Switch interfaces are often needed for more high-tech access. So if you wanted to use a switch to control a computer or an iPad or a tablet, you would most likely need some sort of switch interface. The Bluetooth is both a switch and a switch interface. It connects via Bluetooth to the device that it's controlling. And then the white and the orange buttons can either act as switches, or you can plug any other wired 3.5 millimeter switches into ports on the side if those switches aren't ideal for you. If you plug in your own switches on the side, then the Bluetooth is basically just acting as a Bluetooth switch interface for your wired switches. So yeah, you have up to 2 switch inputs with this interface, but you can change between different modes. So the 2 switches can actually control up to 10 different functions. 6 of those are built in. So things like the white one could be space, and the orange one could be enter, or one could be left click and one could be right click. So those are some of the built-in modes, or you can program your own keystrokes or mouse functions to the Bluetooth. So actually just keystrokes, not mouse functions, I think. Sorry about that. But you can program your own keystrokes to those buttons if you plug it into a keyboard. And this link on here, modes to control up to 6 functions built in and 4 keystrokes of your choice, that'll show you how to do that. The Bluetooth, one thing that's nice, I guess, about Bluetooth interfaces in general, and we're going to shift away from Bluetooth interfaces in a minute here, so I'll just make this point before we do, but they can be nice, especially right now, because we're in this weird phase with iPads where some of them have a lightning charger port on the bottom and some of them have the USB-C. And with a Bluetooth interface, you don't have to worry about which one it is. It'll work with any iPad because it doesn't need to be plugged into the device itself. And so I think that just makes Bluetooth a little bit more appealing right now in this weird in-between time. Of course, Bluetooth is also nice because it can move around, you're not getting cords in the way and things like that. But that's just one thing that I was kind of thinking about as I was putting this together. A few other Bluetooth options that I'll let you explore on your own if you're more interested in Bluetooth. The Praetorian applicator, the iSwitch, and the Tekla are all available in the Loan Library. But we really hear a lot of people have a strong preference for wired interfaces. So I'll kind of switch focus to those and let you look into these on your own if you're after the Bluetooth ones. So the Hitch 2 is a wired computer switch interface, a USB computer switch interface, compatible with any switch accessible programs, and then it's fully compatible, full access to Mac OS with mouse control modes. So you can use different switches to control mouse directionality on a Mac. It's going to be a tedious access method, and if something like a proportional joystick is an option, that might be something to try first, but it is possible with Switch 2 and it's kind of cool. And then it has, other than that, it has two other ready programmed modes with various control options for each switch. So you can plug in up to 5 switches, 5 different functions per mode, and then you can also create up to 5 custom keyboard commands that can be switch controlled. And like I said, it accepts 5 wired switches, connects to the device via USB, and then like I mentioned before, you would need an adapter for a device that doesn't have a USB port. So if it's for an iPad, again, you would need either the USB to Lightning adapter or the USB to USB-C adapter, depending on what type of iPad you're on. The Don Johnston Switch Interface Pro has been a really popular interface for computer and iPad access for a long time. Unfortunately, Don Johnston no longer makes it. But we do still have it in the Loan Library, and it's just still so popular that I just thought it would be worth mentioning. But I did kind of intentionally sandwich it between the Hitch 2 and the Tapio because those can be good alternatives to try in place of this one if you are looking for something that you'll be able to purchase. So similar to the Hitch, it can do switch emulation of various programmed keyboard and mouse functions, and then you can also program in your own keyboard strokes, up to 4 with this one, I think. And then again, you would need an adapter for a device that doesn't have a USB port, like an iPad. We're just about out of time, so I'm going to wrap up really quickly, but the Tapio is a very small, compact USB interface. It's more basic, less ability to customize functions, but this can be a really good option for 1 or 2 switch scanning. So to plug 2 switches in, you'd need this splitter here, and then to plug into an iPad, again, you'd need the USB-C to Lightning or USB-C to USB-C adapter. I also just want to mention that, kind of bring this all together and mention that we have 2 switch kits in the Loan Library. So these are big tubs filled with tons of different kinds of switches, interfaces, modifiers, and mounts. So if you're in those early stages of switch assessment, if you're trying to, find a reliable switch site, if you're trying to figure out positioning, if you're thinking about what other features might be needed, these are a really great resource because there's a lot of different options in there. And then here are some additional resources to explore if you're interested in learning more about switch access, about switch assessment, implementation and training, and switch accessible activities. If you have any additional resources to share, we would love to hear them. And then additionally, we're always looking for feedback about training topics for these webinars, for our fall and spring training, for Kate. So if you have switch related topics or trainers in mind that you want to learn about or learn from, please share those with us. Here are the resources that I referenced in creating this presentation. And that's all I have. I want to say thank you again for your time and attention. Reach out to myself or anyone on the SWAAC Central Office team if you have any questions about anything in the loan library. And also give us a follow on social media. We share lots of great resources on there. Are there any questions? I'll pop into the chat and see. Does the loan bank have USB adapters for the iPad? Yes. Yeah, we have USB to USB-C adapters and USB to Lightning adapters. Yeah, and Brittany just kind of asked, has anyone had success with Bluetooth switches in the schools where there are a lot of Bluetooth options available? If anybody has any feedback for her. Oh, Tammy, thank you for sharing that 5-part feature matching. All right. Thanks, everyone.